All right, Rob, we'll start with that third step prayer now, sir.
You got it, my friend. And the third step prayer, which we found on page 63 of your big book. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulty, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help. Thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
All right. Thank you, Rob.
And we're on page 45, everybody. Let me let Louise in. So, page 45. Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. That means we have written a book which we believe to be spiritual as well as moral. And it means, of course, that we're going to talk about God. Here, difficulty arises with agnostics. Many times we talk to a new man and watch his hope rise as we discuss his alcoholic problem and explain our fellowship. But his face falls when we speak of spiritual matters, especially when we mention God, where we have reopened a subject which our man thought he had neatly evaded or entirely ignored.
Yeah, so first and foremost, there's a pretty strong sentence here because we're talking about finding that power greater than ourselves. And that's what this book is all about. It's we're going to find where that power is and uh, and how it is. So bottom line is we're looking for the power greater than ourselves. We call it many different things. It's our higher power, power greater than ourselves, God, etc. But something that works for you. But those are some of the titles that we'll use throughout the book within this program. And it's not something that we're going to actually shy away from or be embarrassed about. Bottom line is that we're looking for that higher power. Rob?
Yeah, we are looking for, but a lot of us come in with prejudices. The idea that from our childhood that God is a punishing God and don't do that or God's going to be upset with you or you're going to go to hell. So we come in with these prejudices that God is a punishing God. And that's why it was so important that they came up with the idea of God of your understanding. What would you like God to be in your life or your higher power? If God creates too many problems for you or your higher power, what do you want your God to be? Or what your higher power do you want it to be? Well, I want somebody that's going to look after me, that's going to have my back when things are going poorly in my life, somebody that I can turn to that's going to make me feel better, somebody that can straighten out my problems because you know what? I can't. Somebody's going to take away the drink issue because I can't. And these are things that we come across and we start to come through. And this is what We Agnostics is all about. Yeah, we know you have your prejudices against God or a higher power. But in order to get better, we have to realize that on our own we can't do it. So come up with your own conception of God, you know, and great things can happen in your life. Mary B, we are on page 45. We know how he feels. We have shared his honest doubt and prejudice. Some of us have been so violently anti-religious. To others, the word God brought up a particular idea of him with which someone had tried to impress them during childhood. Perhaps we rejected this particular conception because it seemed inadequate. With that rejection, we imagined we had abandoned the God idea entirely. We were bothered with the thought that faith and dependence upon a power beyond ourselves was somewhat weak, even cowardly. We looked upon this world of warring individuals, warring theological system, and inexplicable calamity with deep skepticism. We looked askance, which is doubtful or suspiciously, at many individuals who claim to be godly. How could a supreme being have anything to do with it all? And who could comprehend a supreme being anyhow? Yet in other moments, we found ourselves thinking, well, enchanted by a starlit night, who then made all this? That was a feeling of awe and wonder. but it was fleeting and soon lost.
Yeah, so highlighted that we were bothered with this thought that faith and dependence upon a power beyond ourselves was somewhat weak, even cowardly. And what we know is completely the opposite. It is of strength and power. And the idea behind this is that we have one conception of God maybe coming into this program, but the idea here is that we want to bring up and use it from a spiritual standpoint and a strength standpoint as opposed to just a religious approach. So that's something that we're going to be talking about and working with. And as far as comprehending a supreme being, then it's just like the book says, looking up at a starry night and wondering who or what created all of this. So then it starts to come into picture as to the immensity and the power that can be brought with it. Rob?
Yeah, remember Bill was in the war. He didn't see any action, but he was still in the war and heard all the horror stories that went on in it, getting killed. You know, why are we fighting this incredible war when people are dying? And you see all these tragedies in life. Just to ourselves, why did so and so have cancer? Why did so and so have to die? Why did so and so have to get sick? These are questions that we ask ourselves all the time. The only way I can deal with it is that I always take a look at it and go, it's over my pay grade. Maybe one day I will understand why these things happen, but right now I don't. But I have enough faith that there's a reason behind everything. And one day maybe I will find out, or I might never find out. I'm okay with that because maybe I'm just not ready to understand it. So I take these things what they're worth. Bad things do happen to good people.
Mhm.
It's life, and we have to deal with life on life's terms. Okay, but now I get to instead of trying to take the whole burden on my shoulders, now I just give it to God. My higher power, and say, God, I know you got this. I know you'll help me get through it. You'll help this other person get through whatever tragedy they're going through. Together we'll work through it. And it's given me great comfort. Now,
Mhm.
before I used to try to take it on, as I say, there was a book by Ayn Rand, and it was called Atlas Shrugged. Atlas was the strongest man in the world. And what he did is he took on all the world's problems until what happened is that he had so many problems on his shoulders that he was hunched over. You know, any more problems that were added, he would fall over. So what did he do? He just shrugged, and some of the problems fell off his shoulder, and he was able to stand up straight again. Simple analogy, but it's so true. We're not taking on all the responsibility ourselves. We're sharing it with our God, knowing that He will know what to do and will lead us in the right direction. Yes, we of agnostic temperament have had these thoughts and experiences. Let us make haste to reassure you. We found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results. I have highlighted that in a different color than everything else so that it stands out. I'm going to read it one more time. Thank you, Kicken. You understand. We found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God.
Yeah, and Rob has highlighted the important point here in this paragraph very, very well. Thank you, Rob. The bottom line is that the book is Bill is trying to reassure us, and that even a willingness. So it's not even you don't even have to approach the point of actually believing at this point. Just a willingness to believe is all that's necessary to get you started. with regard to that power and tapping into it and being able to utilize it to your benefit and for others. Rob?
Yeah, we start with willingness. Could there be something? Maybe. Then we have belief. We believe. And then we have faith. Belief is that something could happen. Faith is that it will happen. And that's what the difference is, but this is what the beauty of Bill Wilson and his writing is, that he's bringing us along slowly. You don't have to, believe right away. But how are you doing with running your own life? Is everything going perfect? No. Could it be better? Darn right. Could somebody else help you? Yes. Let's share some of these burdens with our higher power. As soon as we admitted, much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect the contact with Him. Here's where I've underlined. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe, underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. We found that God does not make too hard terms for those who seek Him. To us, the realm of spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding. To those who earnestly seek, it is open, we believe, to all men.
Yes, it is open and it is there. The bottom line is that as soon as we admitted the possible existence, so it's something that you have to do uh, privately and personally, and that there is something out there, irrespective of what you call it, whether that's the creative intelligence, spirit of the universe, God, higher power, etc. You will begin to be possessed with a sense of power and direction, and provided we take other simple steps, which we will explain as we go along. So, bottom line is that it is your own conception, no matter how adequate or inadequate it is, and that'll be sufficient to make an approach and effect to contact your higher power. Rob?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here that really stand out for me and really make it come alive to me. And that is, we found that God does not make too hard turns for those who seek Him. Now, in my mind, when I read that line, I always think it says, we found that God does not make too hard terms for those who honestly seek Him. I don't know why I want to put in honestly seek Him, but for some reason, I always do. But the idea is that He's waiting for you. All you have to do is make the approach. Okay? He's not going to come barge down the door. But if you seek, He is there. So that line, it's so beautifully put. It's easy. Make the approach. And then on page 57, it says, but He has come to all who have honestly sought Him. And the other line that I really like is our conception. I don't have to think the same way as Leo about my God or who my God is. He doesn't have to think my way. I don't have to think his way. His conception can be different than mine. That's one of the beautiful things about it, is your conception. What do you want your God to be? Loving, kind, courteous, wants my back to protect me at all times. These are the beautiful things about it. Now, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. What are those other simple steps? I'm sure everybody here can tell us that it's continuing on in the program and finishing the 12 steps, or doing the 12 steps, and then living. this life. Remember, old ideas are cast out and new thoughts, emotions, and ideas take their place. Remember, we were selfish and self-seeking all the time. We only thought about ourselves and what we could get out of life. Now we've changed, okay? And we're thinking, what can I bring to life? What can I bring to Larissa today? What can I do for her to make her day just a little bit better? Not grandiose, okay? Just simple things. A smile, you know, opening a door, carrying bags if she's got 10 different bags she's carrying to help somebody out. To ask Pete how he's doing, and really meaning it and caring that life is going well for him. How can I help? And these are simple things, but we get out of ourselves and we're thinking about other people. Top of page 47 now, everybody. When therefore we speak of you, to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. This applies to other spiritual expression which you find in this book. Do not, and I've highlighted this, do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. At the start, this was all we needed to commence spiritual growth, to effect our first conscious relation with God as we understood Him. Afterwards, we found ourselves accepting many things which then seemed entirely out of reach. That was growth. But if we wished to grow, we had to begin somewhere. So we used our own conception, however limited it was.
And your conception, it does have to make sense. It's something that can't be, as our friend Bill will put it, it can't be a doorknob, because I'm not going to rely on my doorknob to get me through the day, kind of thing. It's got to be something that is that makes sense, even if it is a bit inadequate at the time. But the your own conception is highlighted, and the expression that you're trying to get to, or that you will find in this book. And again, we talked about anything that gets in your way, any blocks, mental blocks, any prejudices or anything like that. You should lay those aside, and you will commence to get spiritual growth. Once you do that, everything starts to kind of brighten up a little bit, as I kind of like to put it. It's like the colors are brighter and more colorful. The day is a little bit lighter, and things are just a little bit better. And that's a great feeling to have when you start to open up and seek God as a partner and helping you to get through the day. Rob?
Yeah, a couple of things. How do we find God? Well, on pages 46 and 47, it tells us 1, lay aside prejudice. 2, willing to believe. 3, seek God. Bracket. We found that God does not make too hard terms for those who seek Him. And 4, honestly asking ourselves what they mean to you. That's how we find God. And then I also wanted to throw the definition of conception. The sum of a person's ideas and beliefs about something, idea, plan, design, thought, the forming or devising of a plan or idea. I just wanted to throw that in there too. We need to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself? As soon as a man can say that he does believe, or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him he is on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. And then it's got a little asterisk. Be sure to read Appendix 2 on spiritual experience.
Okay. And why don't we go ahead and do that, Rob? We'll go to page 567 and read that.
Yep, page 567, spiritual experience. Do you want me to read the whole thing, or do you want me to break it down?
No, we'll go ahead and just read the whole thing, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay, sounds good. Spiritual experience. The terms spiritual experience or spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which upon careful reading shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. Yet it is true that our first printing gave many readers the impression that these personality changes or religious experiences must be in the nature of sudden and spectacular upheavals. Happily for everyone, this conclusion is erroneous. In the first few chapters, a number of sudden revolutionary changes are described. Though it was not our intention to create such an impression, many alcoholics have nevertheless concluded that in order to recover, they must acquire an immediate and overwhelming God consciousness, followed at once by a vast change in feeling and outlook. Among our rapidly growing membership of thousands of alcoholics, such transformation, though frequent, are by no means the rule. Most of our experiences are what the psychologist William James calls the educational variety, because they develop slowly over a period of time. Quite often, friends of the newcomer are aware of the difference long before he is himself. He finally realizes that he has undergone a profound alteration in his reaction to life. That such a change could hardly have been brought about by himself alone. What often takes place in a few months could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline. With few exceptions, our members find that they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource, which they presently identify with their own conception of a power greater than themselves. Most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves, is the essence of spiritual experience. Our more religious members call it God consciousness. Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic capable of honestly facing his problems in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to all spiritual concepts. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. We find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. There is a principle, which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all argument, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation, and that's credited here to Herbert Spencer.
Okay, so a couple of things that we want to talk about here. The terms spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in the book. It is there needs to be a sufficient personality change. So it's really a big change within us, and the way that we look at things, the way we act, and the way that we perform the tasks that we have in front of us, how we approach them, how we approach others, and doing good, or at least thinking that you're going to do the best you can at whatever it is you endeavor to try. These personality changes or kind of these religious experiences in some cases are immediate and profound, but otherwise they talk about the educational variety, in which is the type that kind of learn over time, that kind of take a couple of steps forward, maybe one step back, kind of approach, and when they get there over a period of time, and this transformation is something that can happen, that doesn't have to happen all at once. This change is pronounced and profound, and can once it's done, then you have tapped into this power and the resources that you need in order to be able to approach the program and these steps and do what's necessary in order to live a sober life, as well as live a life that is filled with your higher power. The idea here is that if you're closed-minded or shut off from everything, the intolerance and or belligerent denial, you find that you will be closed off from it, and it will be difficult, if not impossible, in order to be able to tap into this power. I'll read the last sentence. The willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness, those three things are important. They're highlighted, and I will bring them up again as we go forward. They are essential for recovery, and having them is absolutely necessary. Rob?
Yeah, the spiritual experience. Bill Wilson had a white light spiritual experience. You know, also Fitzmail had a white light experience that they talk about in a book. So these other people, they read the book and go, "Well, I never had a white light experience. Am I not going to be recovered?" So what they did is they put this spiritual experience in. The spiritual experience was added in the second printing. These are for people that love nerd stuff. Information that is nice to have, but it's not going to keep you sober. But I love these things. Spiritual experience was added in the second printing of the first edition, March 1941. Now, also the quote at the back is attributed to Herbert Spencer, but really it should be credited to William Paley. That's another fact. But the whole idea about the spiritual experience is change. They mention all these different changes: spiritual experience, spiritual awakening, personality changes, religious experiences, spectacular upheavals, revolutionary changes, God consciousness, vast change, transformations, educational variety. They talk about all these changes that happen. And I've told my story before. I got laid off many years ago. I had been in the fellowship for 3 months. I got called into the office. Normally, I would have been distraught. Okay, because I didn't think I was good enough for anything else, and this is my life. This is the way it is. But I've been in the fellowship for 3 months. I came out of the office, closed the door, and just looked up and went, "God, I know you got me. That you got better things in mind for me." That is when I knew that I had gone through a spiritual change. Instead of thinking, "Oh, I'll never get another job," and started feeling sorry for myself, I knew that somebody had my back and was going to look after me, and that good things were going to happen, better things were going to happen. That's when I knew a change had happened to me. Before that, I didn't know. That comes gradually. And as they say in the book, most people notice the difference way before you do. Why? Because instead of thinking about myself all the time, I was starting to think about other people. I was thinking better things are in store for me. Good things are going to happen. Why? Because my God is going to look after me. He wants nothing but the best for me. That's my conception of God. My God's got my back. Good things are about to happen. Buckle up. Great things are happening. So get ready for it. Thanks, Leo.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add, my friend?
No, you've done a great job. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So we're back on page 47. That was great news to us, where we had assumed we could not make use of spiritual principles unless we accepted many things on faith, which seemed difficult to believe. When people presented us with spiritual approaches, how frequently did we all say, "I wish I had what this man has. I'm sure it would work if I could only believe as he believes, but I cannot accept as surely true the many articles of faith which are so plain to him." So it was comforting to learn that we could commence at a simpler level.
Yeah, a very simple level. And that's one of the important points that we want to make. And that's something that, as a sponsor or somebody that's working with somebody just starting out, is that should explain It is it's not this all-encompassing faith-oriented type of belief structure. It is really um, just the simple things where we talk about um, that it is just a wonderful willingness. It's just a willingness to believe is what we're looking for. And after that, just starting to open your eyes, your ears, your mind to those things, and just start letting them trickle in. And over time, getting used to that feeling, that new feeling, that a very comforting feeling to have um, as you start to believe going forward. Rob?
Yep. Right at the bottom of page 47, everybody. Besides a seemingly inability to accept much on faith, we often found ourselves handicapped by obstinacy, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice. Many of us have been so touchy that even casual reference to spiritual things make us bristle with antagonism. This sort of thinking had to be abandoned. Though some of us resisted, we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feeling. Faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process. We hope no one else will be prejudiced for as long as some of us were.
Yeah, so the idea here is this stubbornness, this closed-mindedness, and refusal to change is what we're trying to avoid. The idea here is that it might, even if it's something that you're sensitive to, it's just something that you need to set aside. And like I said before, open your mind and your eyes and your ears and let things start to trickle in. So once those negative feelings are put aside and you're able to start to let these better feelings start to trickle in, you will find yourself um, and doing great things. Um, the the resistance there is something that I remember hearing and doing once I started when I was starting the meetings. Somebody started talking about God, and I actually just turned off my attention, and it just didn't want to listen because I wasn't going to start quote believing in God just because I had an alcohol problem. But the idea here is from a spiritual standpoint, I was able to accept a higher power as in my own conception and push through this and I was able to um, cast aside all of my prejudices and was able to open up. Um, Having done that, it was able to start the process of tapping into that power once I had it and getting use of it so that I could actually apply it to stopping the drink problem and finally get sober. Rob?
Yeah, and I've made a note at the top of this page, and it says, we cannot see the wind, but we can see the effects of wind. What, and we can see the branches blowing in the breeze, but we can't see the wind, but we can see the effects. So then we start thinking about our own lives. Where had certain things come into my life and protected me when I shouldn't have been protected? Where have good things happened in my life where I didn't have anything to do with it, but these good things came into my life, you know? So we can't see the wind. And God is, I believe it was Billy Graham that came up with this, or that's, where I heard it. Well, in all honesty, I heard it from Bill. Bill S from New Jersey. And he mentioned Billy Graham sometimes. So he'll give more on that, I'm sure, at the end. But the whole idea is, you know what? Good things have happened in my life, and was it me? Because before, when I was selfish and self-centered, yeah, it was all me, my bravado. Yeah, I did it. I was able to get that job. I was able to get that girl. I was able to, accumulate certain things in my life. Well, was it really me or was it God? Did he make all these things possible? Today, I believe it was God making these things possible in my life. The reader may still ask why he should believe in a power greater than himself. We think there are good reasons. Let us have a look at some of them. The practical individual of today is a stickler for facts and results. Nevertheless, the 20th century readily accepts theories of all kinds, provided they are firmly grounded in fact. We have numerous theories, for example, about electricity. Everybody believes them without a murmur of doubt. Why this readily acceptance? Simply because it is impossible to explain what we see, feel, direct, and use without a reasonable assumption as a starting point.
Yeah, so um, if you're still asking why you should believe in a power greater than yourself, the idea is that there are really good reasons out there. And the practical individual, which I'd assume that most of us, if not all of us, are, you're going to look for facts and results. But the idea here is that, just like Rob said, you can't see the wind, but you can see the effects of wind. You can't necessarily see electricity at all times, but you can see the effects of it, and that and you know it's going to work. It's just something that's there, but it's hard to explain, but it's there. So um, the idea here is we know that this higher power is here, even if it might be a little bit difficult to explain. But it's something that we want to accept, and again, laying aside our prejudices so that we can believe. And once believing and accepting, taking advantage of that power that we've been able to tap into. Right?
Yeah, when I go over to the light switch, I believe that the lights are going to start to come on. Why? Because they always have in the past. And it's like when I start to pray, I believe that God is going to be there and he's going to listen. I might not get what I want or what I'm praying for at that moment, but he's going to listen. He's going to listen. And when I pray for other people, which I do all the time, you know, I'm hoping that, he's going to look after those people in my life that I love and I care about and that are going through things that, I don't want them to go through. Susan, you're never late to an AA meeting. You're perfectly on time. So great to have you here. Thank you. We're on page 48 for those who can follow along. Everybody nowadays believes in scores of assumptions for which there is good evidence, but no perfect visual proof, and does not scientific demonstrate that visual proof is the weakest proof. It is being constantly revealed as mankind studies the material world that outward appearances are not inward reality at all. To illustrate, the prosaic steel girder is a mass of electrons whirling around each other at incredible speed. These tiny bodies are governed by precise laws, and these laws hold true throughout the material world. Science tells us so. We have no reason to doubt it. When, however, the perfectly logical assumption is suggested that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there is an all-powerful, guiding, creative intelligence, right there, our perverse streak comes to the surface, and we laboriously set out to convince ourselves it isn't so. We read wordy books and indulge in windy arguments, thinking we believe this universe needs no God to explain it. Were our contentions true, it would follow that life originated out of nothing, means nothing, and proceeds nowhere.
Yeah, we need to believe in something. That's an important point to make in this passage that we're just now reading. There's a lot of things that we believe in, and with no perfect visual proof. Again, we bring up the perfect example that Rob made with regard to can't see the wind, but you can see the effects of wind. But you know it's there, you know it's powerful, and you know it has the ability to do certain things that would otherwise not seem to be there. They talk about a steel girder. These girders are made of these electrons whirling around at incredible speeds, and there are precise laws that these hold true. And throughout the material world, science tells us that. So the idea here is not to doubt. There is an all-powerful, guiding, creative intelligence out there. It's something that you would want to tap into and believe. And once doing that, you will find that that you can answer things like how did life originated out of nothing, means nothing, and proceeds nowhere. You would say that's absolutely false, and that there is something there. There is something there. Rob?
Yeah, the whole idea here is stop thinking with your head and start thinking with your heart. You know, there's not, you know, stop using this and use your heart. Is there a God in your life? Is there a higher power? Someone you can turn to? You know, who's always there 24/7. Page 49, everybody. Instead of regarding ourselves as intelligent agents, spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, we agnostics and atheists choose to believe that our human intelligence was the last word, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and end of all. Rather vain of us, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I highlighted this paragraph. It's just really something that I've read a couple of times over and over. The agnostics and atheists chose to believe that our human intelligence was the last word. I've since moved beyond that and opened up my mind to other things, and tried to humble myself in the presence of this higher power and this belief structure that I've created around it, and tapping into the higher power. Rob?
You know, Leo, you just said humbled yourself, you know, and you know, I was taught that the first thing we come into when the fellowship is humility. I don't know what to do. Everything I've tried has not worked. So I humble myself, come into the fellowship of AA and go, help me. And the first thing we lose when we go out is that humility. I know what to do now. I got this. You know, so, you know, humility is a double-edged sword, you know. So, you know, stay humble. We who have traveled this dubious path beg you to lay aside prejudice, even against organized religion. We have learned that whatever the human frailties of various faiths may be, those faiths have given purpose and directions to millions. People of faith have a logical idea of what life is all about. Actually, we used to have no reasonable conception whatever. We used to amuse ourselves by cynically dissecting spiritual beliefs and practices when we might have observed that many spiritually minded persons of all races, colors, and creeds were demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and usefulness which we should have sought ourselves.
Yeah. So the first part of this paragraph was this lay aside of prejudice, even against organized religions and stuff, was the inspiration for the set aside prayer. And it's one that we have used repeatedly and to great benefit of all. It does give us that purpose and direction that we're looking for. And the cynicism and the resistance and the resentment that might be built up around religion and this higher power has got to be smashed, as we will learn more and more about, and find that there is a strength and a power and a stability that comes with this idea and working with it and becoming spiritually minded. And it does affect and impact all races, colors, and creeds. And there's no prejudices when you finally start to open up your mind. Rob?
Yeah, we're at the top of page 50, everybody. Instead, we looked at the human defects of these people and sometimes used their shortcomings as a basis for wholesale condemnation. We talked of intolerance while we were intolerant ourselves. We missed the reality and the beauty of the forest because we were diverted by the ugliness of some of its trees. We never gave the spiritual side of life a fair hearing.
Yeah, and that certainly is true for most of us, or at least some of us, I'll say. It is true for me. I had closed myself off to religion for some very personal reasons that I had as I was growing up, and decided that it just wasn't for me. That how could a God act and do the things that were that this God would do, and cause the problems that were caused. And I've since been able to move away from that whole idea that it's somehow a bad thing. So I would just say that this is something that we need to do, is to see the forest in spite of the trees, no matter what the trees look like, and give things a fair shake in order to open up your mind and your heart and be able to accept this. Rob?
In our personal stories, you will find a wide variation in the way each teller approaches and conceives of the power which is greater than himself. Whether we agree with a particular approach or conception seems to make little difference. Experience has taught us that these are matters about which, for our purpose, we need not be worried. They are questions for each individual to settle for himself.
No, and again, whether it's a particular approach or conception, it doesn't make any difference. Remember, we're talking about your own conception of God and that higher power that works for you. So it doesn't have to be like everyone else. So this structured religion and particular beliefs that are a part of that doesn't need to get in your way in coming up with your own higher power. Rob?
Yep. On one proposition, however, these men and women are strikingly agreed. Every one of them has gained access to and believes in a power greater than himself. This power has in each case accomplished the miraculous, the humanly impossible. As a celebrated American statesman put it, let's look at the records.
Yep. That American statesman was Alfred E. Smith. He was the governor of New York who said this. Every one of us has gained access to and believes in a power greater than ourselves. Those that have been successful in doing that, in being able to lay aside their prejudices and their resentments and their fears, have been able to really open up their lives and find that it is rather miraculous, and certain things that the human can't do, you will find that this power has allowed you to be able to do. Namely, in this case, is the ability to stop drinking and stay stopped, to move from I'm not drinking currently to a very sober person and a sober lifestyle. Rob?
Here are thousands of men and women, worldly indeed, that flatly declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude towards that power, and to do certain simple things, there has been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, In the face of the total failure of their human resources, they found that a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction flowed into them. This happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled by the seeming futility of existence, they showed the underlying reason why they were making a heavy going of life. Leaving aside the drink question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how the change came over them. When many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God is today the most important fact of their life, they present a powerful reason why one should have faith.
Absolutely. This human experience that we all have and live, we have to apply this concept of a higher power and this belief structure that goes with it. And we're not just talking about the drink problem now. We're talking about the all-encompassing way that we approach life and what we're looking for here. This is as the paragraph states, is a revolutionary change. It is something that is profound, and it is something that is very, very positive. It's is something that you should feel very good about, and it's and coming to this ability to believe in a power greater than yourself is also something that you have to change your attitude about, and really kind of open up and accept. Rob?
Yeah, they show how the change came over them. When many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God is today the most important fact of their life, they present a powerful reason why one should have faith. The whole idea of Bill Wilson in writing this book is that it's not just his opinion. It's not one man's idea that, this worked for him, so it might work for you. No, the idea is that all these people did the same thing and got the same results. If I do what they did, will I get those results? Do I believe that that will happen to me? If I believe that will happen to me too, I will continue on with the program. I will do the steps. If I don't believe I will get the same results, I'm not going to do the work. And there is work to be done. There's changes to be made. Okay? I have to make changes. I have to believe what they believed and do what they did in order to get the changes. Are there other ways to get sober in life? There probably are. Do I know of them? In this book, there is a solution that they know about. This is how I got sober, so I can pass this on to other people. Leo, are we ready to bring Jersey Bill in?
Yes, we are. Absolutely.
Hi, this is Bill from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. Good job today. This is a real good chapter. This is when we're starting to get into the solution. This chapter is basically about step 2. The problem is step 1, and the solution to the problem starts at step 2. And step 2 is telling us basically that we need to get a higher power in our life because we're powerless over alcohol and we don't have the power to deal with it. So we need more power than what we have. And it told us on page 45, the main object of this book is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. That's what the object of this book is. The main point that this book is trying to get across to us is we need to get a power greater than ourselves in our life because we don't have enough power to do this. Whatever you want to call it, God, Mother Nature, Father Time, whatever. As long as it makes sense and as long as you believe it's more powerful than you, your higher power is not any better or any worse than my higher power. As long as you have a higher power in your life, you'll be able to get through dealing with alcoholism. And that's basically what Bill's doing here. He's trying to give us a bunch of logical reasons and on why we need to get a higher power in our life. He's not trying to tell us who this higher power is or what it is or anything like that. He's just telling us that we need a higher power in our life. We have a need for God, if you want to call it that, because we don't have enough power to deal with alcoholism by itself. And he tells us here that just because you can't see something doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Visual proof is the weakest proof. Yeah, like Rob mentioned, this guy, Billy Graham, who was a preacher, he said you can't see the wind, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. Just because you can't see God doesn't mean God isn't there. God is taking care of you. He's still in your life, and you may not even know it, but he's still there. And that's the point that guy, Billy Graham, was trying to get across to people. And Bill's trying to go along with this same idea here that we need to get some sort of a higher power in our life, because if we don't have a higher power, we're not going to be able to deal with alcoholism. And according to Alcoholics Anonymous, that's the only thing that's going to work. They told us right in the beginning of this chapter on the first page, on page 44, it told us that we're suffering from a illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. You have to have a spiritual experience in order to conquer alcoholism, according to Alcoholics Anonymous. Therapy's not going to work. Willpower's not going to work. Choice is not going to work. Choosing not to drink, all of that stuff that you hear in the meetings, that might keep somebody sober for a short period of time. But according to Alcoholics Anonymous, we need to have a spiritual experience. And the way you get that spiritual experience is by going through this process and getting God in your life. In this here chapter, God is mentioned 27 times in this chapter, and is mentioned 134 times in the first portion of the book. And there's other terms that he uses for God, Father of light, he who has all power, Spirit of the universe. He's got a whole bunch of different terms that he uses, and he's got 281 times in the first portion of this book he makes a reference to God. And he just doesn't use the term God. He uses other terms, higher power, Father of light. And you can go through this book and find all these different terms that he uses. So what do you think this book is about? This book is about getting a power in your life that's greater than yourself, because that's what's going to solve your problem. If you could solve your problem by yourself, and you could have stopped drinking on your own, you would have done it years ago, and you would have never got to AA. So basically, all Bill's doing, he's just giving us he's trying to tell us that there's a need for God. He's not trying to tell us that what God is, or who God is, or what God you have to use. He's just saying we have a need for God. And you can use whatever conception you have. My conception of God could be the same as yours, or it could be different. It makes no difference. As long as we have a conception of God, that's what's going to help us stay sober. And that's basically what this whole chapter is about. And again, it's all about step 2. And all we have to do is just be willing to believe that there's something more powerful than ourselves. And that's the start for step 2. As long as you have the willingness to believe in something. That's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
Okay.
Thanks,
Rob,
Bill.
we'll do the serenity prayer and then close things out and open it up.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom.